on bridging the classroom and the newsroom divide, advancing journalism practice in the digital age. I noticed that this was part of a technical session we had before lunch. And thankfully, some of the participants at the technical session would also be assisting us this time around. So we're effecting a slight structural adjustment on this, and the moderator for this session is Kolapo Olapoju, who is the editor of TheCable newspaper. Do we have Kolapo in the house? Okay, thank you. Let's welcome him. Thank you, Kola. Thank you very much. TheCable is the online. Do they call them newspaper? I thought it's the one we hold like that is a newspaper. Okay. All right, fantastic. All right. To join our moderator to tackle this topic, we have the head department of communications, University of Ghana, Abena Yeboah-Banin. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, my sister. Should I say Akwaba? Okay. Akwaba. We also have, excuse me, Abena Yeboah-Banin himself. We also have the editor, International Center for Investigative Reporting, Victoria Bamas. Thank you. Let's put our hands together for her. African Regional, you're welcome. African Regional Manager, Reporters Without Borders, Marc Aboflan. Aboflan. Okay. Is it Akwaba too? Are you from Akwaba country? Answer me now, sure. What country? Aha, okay. Is this also Akwaba? Almost. Okay, ways on. Welcome. We are very honored to have with us to also lend some weight of experience and direction to this topic. Our daddy in this business. Prof, okay. Let's put our hands together for Prof. Thank you, sir. I was listening to Prof. Sekoni at the technical session on a topic which is quite similar to this. So, Prof, we are very honored to have you with us here this afternoon. So, I hope we can do some 30 minutes, and then we'll take some reactions from the rest of us. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We didn't expect that we'll have just 30 minutes to do justice to this, but we'll try our best. In the spirit of keeping to time, I will not go into a long introduction, but I would just like to say journalism is changing. Journalism, as we know, is totally different now. The landscape is constantly evolving. We are now in the digital era of journalism, and as such, the demands of newsrooms are changing. And the challenge now is that there's a gap because journalism schools can no longer churning out the capable hands that are needed to fill the slots in the newsrooms. So in the spirit of this, we'll just delve into the conversation straight away. I'll start with Dr. Abena. So how do you see the relationship between journalism education and the newsroom evolving in the digital age? And what are the implications for the practice of journalism?
Right, thank you. And let me thank CJID for inviting me to join this session. I think the conference has been very interesting for me. Busola, no? Okay. Thank you.
I'm sitting in, technically, for Busola.
Okay. So
I was
you're
meant
not
to
Busola.
be a panelist.
Right. So the way journalism is changing and the implications for training, I think that journalism is changing in a number of ways that have been spearheaded by the revolutions in the digital spaces. Off the top of my mind, I think that some of the ways in which we can see changes in journalism would be a move, to some extent, away from the objectivity era. So when I was in journalism school, you were trained, tell the story, remove yourself. But these days, the way things are changing, you see that there's increasingly a drive towards news told with context, news told with position. You listen to the accountability journalism genres that are happening, fact check. When you fact check, you take a stance that somebody has lied or hasn't lied. And I think that a lot of that is happening. Implications for the classroom perhaps needs to become oriented towards not merely creating, and I use that word very advisedly, but not merely creating somebody who has a certain professional heart, who can work with a certain script in mind, but conscious that ultimately I'm a storyteller, and I should be able to tell interesting stories that can compete with all the information online, including the very sensational ones, including the disinformation, but tell a story in a manner that gets people want to come to me. Again, we've seen also that because of increasing precarity in the media budgets are shrinking, especially because a lot of the money is moving from traditional media to digital space. So traditional media is shrinking. It's making employment within that space a bit more precarious. Professionals are not getting as much opportunities. And so you see a trend towards, or an evolution towards people wanting more flexible work terms, a trend towards more of a freelancing kind of logic. So a lot of the students we are training these days may actually not end up in your typical newsroom. They would work in journalism, they would do storytelling, but they may not finish off in your typical newsroom doing an 8 to 5. And so that is beginning to also reflect in how perhaps we should rethink the journalism training that we have. I'll leave the rest because maybe some of the other speakers would address them.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's interesting that you said the revenue in the traditional media landscape is shrinking and most of it is going online. Because even in the online space where I operate, we believe the revenue is going to influencers.
Okay.
So we are struggling too.
Okay.
So I won't belabor the subject. We'll move on to something else. Victoria, this is for you. What was your experience like transitioning from the academic environment to the newsroom? What are the challenges that you had to deal with? What were the skills that you had and the ones that you had to learn while on the job?
Okay, thank you. So from journalism school, let me use that word. So what happened is when I came out, I had the skill. I could write. I'm a creative writer. I could do that. But I joined the journalism industry at a time when there was this transition. We are still at the traditional, we still do the print and TV, but we're moving to digital spaces. That's when most organizations were setting up their online platform, their digital team. And I applied for something else, but they moved me to the digital unit. So there was that shock in between from what I learned. This is something I've actually not come across in school, and I was now faced with it. So that shock was actually there, sort of, but of course, the good thing is that if you apply yourself, you'll be able to cope. And I'm still seeing that now because recently we've been doing quite a number of training across different campuses. This landscape is still changing in the sense that now we're actually dealing with information disorder. So the new crop of journalists, it's not now enough for them to have that digital skill I had to acquire. Now they have to understand how to navigate the information space. So this is a new set of skills that is now added to the digital skills that I acquired.
Thank you very much. Prof, I'll come to you now, sir. I'd like for you to, give us some insights into how you think tertiary institutions can collaborate with newsrooms to better equip students and, maybe amend the curricula
This one. This one. Prof. There you go.
Hello. Well,
All right, sir.
technology first, once in a while. What the need for a meeting point between the newsroom and the classroom, it's imperative. Or I would briefly take my own life experience as an illustration. I studied journalism at Northwestern University in the US, and the first day I got to the classroom, each student had a typewriter on his table. And I'm talking of 1971. You know, so the abundance of the tools enough was intimidating. Okay, I finally left and came back to Nigeria to teach at Ife. In 76 on, and found out that there were not too many typewriters in the newsroom. There were not too many. You know, they could have been maybe 1 to 2 reporters. 10, 15 years later, I went back to the US now to teach Media and Society at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. And when they took me to the newsroom, I didn't know what anything was useful. There were too many things. So this is to illustrate the change or changes. Now, in all those years, there was no emphasis on globalization. But now globalization is on us, whether we want it or not. So the people we are trying to catch up with have whatever tool that is necessary for a job to be done and done with ease is always available. So preaching patriotism is not going to help you manage whatever we have. Because if journalists have to manage, or any trainee has to manage whatever we have, then the product will also be whatever he has, or he or she has. So the change, the radical changes, especially in respect of information technology, will make it imperative for there to be a nexus between the classroom and the newsroom. Not only in terms of technology, but also in terms of new methods of doing things. The practitioner in whatever discipline is indispensable to the person who is just learning theories and some practice. So being for trainee journalists to be in the class, in the newsroom, it's a tremendous exposure that can improve his or her performance, and then the level of quality of what is performed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. So essentially, you're saying that we should ramp up newsroom placement for journalism students, That's a good idea. Already there are many newsrooms who adopt this system, but the challenges, or one of the major challenges, is the financial constraints, because ultimately they are coming to work, even if you are helping to train them, but you have to pay them. And we all know how the landscape is in terms of revenue. So, many newsrooms also grapple with how many can I take? Can I take more than 3 a year or 4? And there are some who believe that perhaps there's a gap there that maybe an agency like TEDFund can come in to fill, can look towards that direction in terms of maybe providing some subsidy for paying those interns, those student interns that come into the newsroom, so that newsrooms can increase their quota. For example, a platform like TheCable that I work for, we tend to take averagely 4 to 5 interns, student interns a year. We can raise it, we can ramp it up to maybe like 10 if we can afford more. What do you say to that? Just as a quick follow-up before I move to the next speaker.
To me, okay. In one sentence, then say it again.
So I was saying that, do you think we need agencies like TEDFund to devote some of the funds at their disposal to sort of subsidizing this initiative?
Yeah, we need TEDFund or whatever fund is dedicated to the improvement of knowledge production. And I'm including in knowledge production the practice of journalism. We are told by the World Bank that in a privatized economy, don't worry about subsidy, don't give anybody subsidy. But in all the countries that I have visited, including the United States, subsidies come in many forms from the government to do the needful. So there is, how many newsrooms can take the many journalists that we produce from the university, from College of Technology, and all this. But the space must be there. There should be money from the government for students in their internship year, call it whatever you want to call it, internship year, industrial training, whatever you want to call it. So that is the government that provides these schools and build a lot of rhetoric about free education at all levels. It is that government that should be paying for students, for trainees to be exposed to the laboratory of practice.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes,
So I'll come to you now, Marc. We will veer off course a bit. We'll slowly retrace our steps. We are dealing with artificial intelligence now. We are dealing with a lot of technological advancements, and they come with their challenges. And we've seen a spike in the rate of fake news, doctored images, doctored videos, and all that. So how do you think emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain can influence and impact the future of journalism as a practice?
Thank you. I think that those new technologies have all challenges, but also opportunities. And before always the challenge, I want to talk a little bit about the opportunities. And like all of us can know, those who are journalists, the time we take to produce a paper or the time you take to produce an history, you can do it more. You can gain a lot of time, you can gain a lot of things by using AI and all those news technology. And yes, those technology have their threat against our job, but what I think is that they have also a lot of opportunity. We can as journalists seek, we can as journalists try to see what can be the best we can have from this type of technology. Talking about challenges, I think we have as journalists or in the media landscape, three types of challenges. The first one is the fake, the verification and the exactitude of all the information available now. And this, I think, we can address this fake by, for the journalists to return to the fundamental of the job. And the fundamental are the ethics and the professional practice. And what we can see actually is that there is a lot of journalists who use this technology and who want to go like what all activists and all people can do and don't take the time to do their job, then verification, working with the information before going out with it. The second challenge also is the possibility we have to interact directly with the public, because one of the huge outcome of this new technology is the fact that we can today exchange more with our community, exchange more with our auditors, and so on. And then this challenge can help us as journalists to have more history, to cover more area, because we have the opportunity to have access to information we didn't have access from this. Then we have the opportunity to go through this, and for us it is very important for journalists to use it to engage more with our community. And the third one is the question of revenue, because one of the big issues in the for the media actually is the revenue and the lack of revenue, as you can say. And those digital technology can help us to improve our revenue. When in the media landscape, the media are organized and face the people who actually determine the revenue. Because like the professor say, 10 or 20 years ago, the revenue was like the publicity you have, the corporate directly, you can go and discuss with them. There is some revenue also from the government, but today all like a huge percentage of this revenue is driven by the big platform. Then if as a media outlet in a landscape, we are well organized, we can have direct discussion with those platforms and drive more revenue to media outlet. This already happened in some parts of the world, in Australia, for example, in USA, and I think in Africa also we can think about how to drive this type of discussion and drain more revenue to media outlets.
Thank you very much. When you mentioned Australia, I take it you are talking about the deal with Google. Yeah.
No, but not only. Not only, also the revenue of the ads, the revenue of all the use we have of social media.
Okay. Thank you very much. Doctor, let me come back to you and take you back a bit. So I deal with a lot of student interns, student journalists, and even graduate interns that we take directly from journalism schools. And some of the things that we find out is the realities that we contend with in the newsroom are not, they are not prepared for it. They are not taught how to pitch. They are not taught how to, understand and adapt to house styles and the different house styles of different newsrooms. They are also not taught things like identifying sources, news gathering, news monitoring, the likes. And especially how to report sensitive issues like gender and PWD issues, and also the new, the expanding scope of journalism. Now we have development journalism, we have fact-checking, and the whole, other things, basically. So we have that situation whereby we spend the first 1, 2, 3 months training them exhaustively, and some don't make it because it's too hard for them. How, I would like if you can share with us some specific and practical steps that universities can take, institutions like that, tertiary institutions can take to expand or amend or modify their curricula to fit with present realities.
Did I just say that? Before I address the question, just a bit of background as to why we are where we are. That place where a student walks out of the classroom, graduates, and comes to the newsroom and can't produce a story. The reality is that the academic institutions that are training the journalists for us have real challenges. Because resources are not coming from the state or wherever else, they are having to admit more and more people. And to teach writing to a big class is just not real. And so increasingly, the students who are studying journalism are studying theory and producing very little journalistic material. If they're not producing as much journalistic material, what it means is that they're not grappling with news sourcing, story ideas, pitching a story, using technology to produce the content. Unfortunately, the reality is that less of that is happening in the classrooms because of the larger numbers. Prof talks about the absence of technology in the classroom for teaching these students. When you go to a good media house's newsroom, the technology you would meet there, you never cited it when you were in journalism training school. And so while it is a worry for us, we also know where it has come from. When you ask me how do we address it, I think that my first call will be, it is time for us as Africans, as society, to put our monies where we think we want to see the change happen. Yesterday, was it, or I think this morning, somebody was talking about the need for people who have resources to give back to academic institutions. Go back to your alma mater and say, I have this money, I want to invest it so that the next crop of journalists that are produced are the good kind that I wish will produce stories that impact society. If we don't do that, things are not going to change. The other place we want to look at, if we really want to improve the journalists we're training, is what happens with regulation. So in my department, we've noticed changes that we think our curriculum should have. And we're introducing a program that we believe addresses some of those changes. It will take us about 3 to 4 years to finish the accreditation journey. Now, that's 3 to 4 years when new trends are emerging. So, in fact, reality is that by the time the program is approved and ready to launch, it is already behind time because a lot was happening while we were busy chasing the accreditation journey. There are real problems that, if honestly, we are minded that we want to produce solid journalists who can tell stories that bring context, and as somebody was telling us this morning, stories that don't teach the world learned helplessness. We are Africans, we are poor, we can't do anything, we must go begging. If we want journalists that do that, we have to be ready to put in the resources. On the part of the academic institutions, because I heard one of them, I think that we also should carry a bit of the burden in how quickly we learn from industry. So beyond sending our students on internship, perhaps it is time for faculty members ourselves to go do internship. I do marketing communications, and I have arranged with a big agency in Ghana that, look, what is happening in digital comm spaces, I think I'm far behind. And so I want to come there for an internship. Perhaps if we do that, while we don't have the resources, at least we gain an eye into what is happening presently in the newsrooms or in practitioner spaces, and we try and adapt what we are doing in curriculum.
Thank you very much. That's a very important contribution, faculty internship. I also think, just to buttress your point, I feel it will benefit even universities if newsroom leaders and senior editors can also be brought into these tertiary institutions to also contribute, share their real-life experiences and insights on the things that they've had to contend with during the course of the job. And that can actually prepare students It seems...
In my university, we do that all the time.
Interesting.
We do that all the time on the condition that the people we're bringing from industry are happy to come for free, because there really isn't money to bring them.
So we're back to the
so
money
when
issue.
they are coming, they often must be our alumni who are ready to do this just because, rather than the fact that there is an envelope waiting for them.
Before I come to Victoria, it seems Prof wants to add something to that.
I just want to add that our government or governments on the continent must realize that we don't have the kind of private or capitalist system that can throw up a lot of billionaires to have the kind of foundation owners that fund all of these things for us now. But the government has something. If there was a third fund, nothing stops the government from getting even just 1 penny tax for this kind of things, so that we can get on to the same level or near it with the people that we are competing with or copying.
Thank you very much, Prof. I know that in the Czech Republic, a certain percentage of some tax goes to funding media houses, and that goes a long way in helping them develop and grow faster. So, Victoria, I'll come to you again. As tough as the ecosystem is now, the journalism landscape, it is harder for women, it is harder for persons with disabilities. And we have a situation whereby you go to newsrooms, you see more male than female. What are the things that we can do to start to change that in terms of recruitment of more underrepresented people, and also in terms of even reportage of issues that affect them?
An interesting thing is when you go to institutions like journalism institutions, you get to see the ratio of women, like in my set, the ratio of women were 3-to-1 guys. But when you check those who are in practice, you have more male doing that. So I think one of the things we can do is to preach the culture of diversity and how newsrooms can benefit from it. I was reading a research that was published on WEF, that's World Economic Forum, that it's saying that there is this loss of public trust on media houses, and some of the reason is because some people do not relate to it. So if we let media houses know that the more diverse they are in terms of their reporting, the more audience they get, and the more audience translates to revenue. So that's one thing. And how media houses can actually do it, of course, it has to be intentional. One of them has to be, there is the external approach and there is the internal approach. For the internal approach, you have to actually consider the staffing. You have to be intentional about those you're recruiting. You want to, and diversity does not necessarily mean gender, that's male or female. You also have to consider ethnicity, religion, and even age range to a certain extent, because something that a Gen Z will see, a millennial will definitely see from different points. So those are some of the things you look out for. And of course, when you go to the academic side, I do not know for now, but while I was in school, I know that diversity was not one of the things that was taught, and gender mainstreaming was not one of the things that was taught. And that thing is, it's not enough for you to do the internal diversity. It has to also reflect in the product you're putting out. In terms of, if you check any media house, just go to their website and see. You most likely will see that all the images are that of men, like all the stories, you have 20 stories. The leading characters are men. And whenever women are spoken about, or young people, let me use women for instance, it's almost always at the position of negative side, maybe health challenges or being victims of SGBV or IDPs, definitely. So women who interestingly are also in all these spaces, because a lot of persons will say if you check the statistics, you get to see we have more male readers than female. But interestingly, when you check in, let's say, movies or other places, you get to see these women. They're also in all these spaces, but they're not relating to our news content. It might be because of the way they are represented. When I look at the media, a particular publication, do I see myself? And when I see myself, do I always want to see myself represented from a place of need, from a place of wanting healthcare facilities for women, maternal mortality, women? Sometimes you have to also present women from a place of power. Interestingly, when women are presented from a place of power, it's usually from high off. You get to hear of people like Ngozi Okonjo, those outliers. How many persons can actually be that? When I see her, do I relate? Do I feel that I can be that kind of person? So I think these are some of the things. And lastly, one thing again is news sources. When you're experts, right? When you're talking to experts, sometimes I think one of the things we do at ICI, we try to ensure that different diverse news sources are represented, and if it's gender issue, we try to get female. But again, we do have issues of female not wanting to talk, of course, because of the culture, tradition, religion, different things that women have been brought up with. But something we do is we intentionally get a database in advance of experts from across board so that our reporters can actually make reference to this and use it and take care of that.
Thank you very much. So, Marc, I'm coming to you again. We find ourselves in the era of UGC. UGC is user-generated content and citizen journalism. I call it the democratization of journalism, where everybody has a smartphone and can easily just make a video of an incident on the road, on the street, and tweet it and make their own stories out of it. Sometimes not completely accurate, sometimes skewed a bit, so these are the things that we're contending with now. A lot of UGC, a lot of citizen journalists. What are the challenges that this brings? And what are the opportunities that we can leverage?
Thank you. I think the citizen journalism or all of people actually have the opportunity to share information, bring a lot of challenge. And one of the challenge I think you talk a little bit about is the verification and the credibility, because nobody verify or accurate this content before the content is out. We have also the fact that, in a traditional newsroom, even if it is a digital newsroom, you have an editor-in-chief, you have people who try to better the content before this is going out. Then this create like a little bit, every content. And sometimes when you have the citizen journalist or like the influencer who is very popular, his voice is sometimes more than the voice of an important media outlet or a well-known media outlet. We also have the challenge of the quality control because of the democratization of the news, because we know that when this is a journalistic content, there is a journalistic work on this content. But if it is even a user-generated content but produced by a citizen journalist or so on, there is no quality checking in this work before it's going on. Then I think this is something we can solve. This is not that we must not have citizen journalists, but I think we can try to solve it by helping, training citizen journalists, capacity building for them in order for them to adhere at ethical or responsibility, things like this before sharing their content. And also, I think this is something we see with the COVID-19 crisis. This is the overload of information. When, I don't know, you have a specific problem or a specific crisis, like the crisis in Sahel, actually, there is a lot of information that when you are a citizen and you are seeking for information, you cannot know how information tools, sometimes media fall into this, and there is no difference between the content who is accurate, the content who is well done, and the content who is not. But I think for this issue, this can also be addressed. As in Reporter Without Border, we tried to address it like 2 years ago by putting in place a sort of standard for journalism, like an ISO type standard for journalism, and the media outlets that going into conformity with this standard, showing that they are credible and you can trust in the content this media outlet produce.
Thank you very much, Marc. We're out of time. Of course, there are more questions there. You pardon me, panelists. So we'll throw the questions to the public, to the audience. If you have any questions for the panelists, please raise your hand. I know there's been a lot of, yeah. So you go first, then you come after. Yeah, you may go.
Good afternoon, everyone. The name is Abubakar, a Media and Communication Officer with Center for Peace Advocacy and Sustainable Development. The moderator talked about, democratization of media and also citizen journalism. So now my question is, what is the role of journalists in mitigating understanding of misinformation and disinformation in Nigeria, and how it has affected young journalists in digital space? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Victoria, are you willing to take that, given your experience with countering disinformation and misinformation?
Okay, first thing first, one of the things that journalists can do, there is this thing saying that, what's the word, I think, information, nature abhors vacuum, and if there is information vacuum, it's going to be filled. And so journalists, as we need to actually fill up those spaces, there is this stuff we now do in promoting media literacy. One of the stuff we actually preach is to actually try to do explainers in advance, this thing to checkmate all those spaces that people are going to fill up. Is because we are not filling up all those spaces. And another issue I realize is because we are not in spaces where people are talking. Like, we get to see media houses, we are all on digital platform and maybe Facebook. People have moved to TikTok, but media houses, the journalists and the media, have we moved to TikTok? Have we moved to, I think now WhatsApp has WhatsApp channel. Have we moved there? Have we moved to those spaces where people are talking? We need to be there, also sharing our information on those spaces, in those methods in which people are consuming that. That's how we can actually help, one of the things. But because of time, I don't want to go through. That's just that for now.
Thank you, Victoria. Final question.
Yeah, thank you. I honestly wish that the camera can go off me so I can just lay bare my mind, because this section is exactly why when I got the invitation for this program. This section is actually, I was excited because of this. I wish I don't want to even say my name. I don't want to say my name or my organization. Okay. Sincerely, when I look at my secondary and primary school classmates, okay, that ventured into other profession, I kind of want to hate myself for going into journalism. Like, you won't believe that in the space of 1 year, I've changed media house up to 3 or 4, 3 to 4 different states, and it's the same thing, non-payment. Please, I don't want my face. So. Non-payment, and I'm sure it's same with everybody. You just keep hearing, we're going to give you, that it's freelance. And I wonder if a journalist gets to the bus, to where he's going to pick a bus to go find a story or do a story, is he going to tell the bus driver or the Uber guy that I'm going to do a freelance? So even when you're even called, someone wants to use your intellectual property, you're giving something to edit because of they think that, okay, they also want to, you don't want freelance. Please, can you do it free? Do it free for me. Am I going to start a family with free? How am I going to marry free? How am I going to buy clothes? How am I going to feed? Is it going to be free all through? Am I going to always ask? So I want to know. And it's sometimes I want to venture, like I'm even kind of trying to network and see if I could shift. But deep down inside of me, journalism is what I want to do.
Can you kindly help us round up?
Yeah, so am I destined to be poor?
I feel like, thank you very much. We've come to the end of this panel session. I feel like that's a question that only God can answer. But we'll keep you now. Yes, so you can meet Victoria on the sidelines, and she will give you some guidelines and some tips. I sympathize and I empathize with you. I understand the terrain, and I hope it works out well for you. Thank you very much. I wish we had more time, but we don't. So we have to wrap it up now. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Marc, and thank you, Victoria.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for them. Thank you for this panel.